of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Today we are welcoming Barrett Simon on to the podcast. He is another one of our King of the Ring contestants that we are welcoming on to share more about his story and just his life and his experiences as an auctioneer within the cattle industry. And this conversation is so fun because we interviewed Neil a few episodes ago now. It's probably been a week or two by the time that Barrett's is going live. And Neil was a major mentor for Barrett. And so it's so fun to be able to follow those two up with one another and just hear both sides of that story and just hear more about Barrett's kind of uncharacteristically different journey that he has taken as an individual in the livestock marketing aspect of the cattle industry. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this episode with Barrett and hear it straight from him. Barrett, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to welcome another one of our King of the Ring contestants on to share a little bit more about yourself and your story and all of the things. I'd love it if you could just take it away and share more about yourself.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me on, Lauren. This is an exciting thing to get ready for when we talk about the King of the Ring, and I know it's going to be a blast when we're out there. So not only for me to get to share a little bit about myself, but then kind of follow along and tune in and hear some about the other guys that are out there competing. I've really enjoyed that so far, and I'm sure the podcast to come will be great as well. As for me, I think a big part of how I got started or what my story is has maybe already been shared to some degree on your podcast. And so I did get to tune in to Neil Barret's, and I'll elaborate a little bit for those that maybe didn't listen to that podcast, but he nailed it. He notched a lot of it. Of course, he was there for a lot of it when I just got started. But when I graduated K-State, I actually took a job in north central Kansas. And not unlike many others fresh out of college or early in our careers, I wanted to bring something home. And it became that question of, well, what is that going to be? Is it a new enterprise? Are they new practices? What equates to dollars that you can bring home and kind of make room for yourself on a family ranch? And I grew up in the cow-calf business, and I know people in the backgrounding business or the yearling grazing business, they ask all the same questions. You know, I think that's extremely normal for somebody, but I knew that was my plan, was to try and get back closer to home and be engaged, be involved in the production side of the business. And so, like I say, I took a job within the extension system, and I was a couple hundred miles from home and really didn't know anybody, let alone have a clientele or a customer base that I knew I was going to hit the ground running and get started with. And so I kind of naturally just gravitated to several livestock markets in the area that I was to cover, but Mankato Livestock, right up there close to the state line, was literally like 3 blocks from my office. And so I got to know Neil and his business partner, Scott Green, of course, Kelly, his mom, and John Russell as well, and started showing up there and taking what I like to call kind of extended lunch breaks on sale day and sitting around there. But what I found was at those markets, it not only added some credibility to what I was trying to do, but it put me in front of and introduced me to a heck of a lot of people. And so they, like I say, they never shooed me away or told me to kick rocks or anything like that. And so I just started going right up the road on Thursdays. They were getting a bunch of cattle in. I'd get off work and I'd just go straight there and hang out for an hour or whatever. And that grew into packing the work boots and an extra pair of jeans and literally as soon as I clocked out, so to speak, going up the road, changing my clothes there in the market, getting out back, and I started unloading trailers, or I was pushing cows to the vet, whatever. And like I say, I know there had to be times where they thought, man, is this kid ever going to leave? But like I say, I really didn't know anybody up there. So that's just what I did. And, you know, the interesting thing with that is I got to meet them, and that's just a great group of people. But their customer base was a phenomenal group of people as well. And so, like I say, that market and some others did a lot of good for me in my professional life, introducing me to those folks and things of that nature. And then it got to the point where I'd come home on weekends, of course, and help my dad or do whatever, whether it was working pairs in the spring, pregging cows in the fall, putting up hay, whatever the seasonal task was. So I'd leave their market on Friday afternoon, I'd have a 3.5 hour drive home and I'd practice. And then I'd drive back up there on Sunday evening for 3.5 hours and I'd practice. And, I did. The funny thing to me, and Neil shared some of it, when I switched roles and then started working for the Red Angus Association, I was still going to be exposed to livestock marketing and in a pretty significant degree, but that was going to be more on the purebred side of things, more at production sales. So I was still going to get that auction fix, if you will, that some of us just are drawn to. A lot of people are drawn to, but I moved away from that community and did move closer to home. And that could have easily been the end of the story. But I think that says a lot about Neil and his family and his crew, is that it wasn't the end of the story, and everybody up there, employees, other auctioneers, they'd say, hey, when are you coming back? Don't forget where we're at. Stop by on your travels, stuff like that. And so I was complaining to Neil one day. He was actually down in my part of the world. And I said, man, I've reached out to a couple people and nobody wants to hire me. The first question is, where'd you go to auction school? Well, I hadn't. I guess I tell people now that I went to Auction School of Hard Knocks, which is in Mankato, America, but I hadn't. And so that was kind of the end of the conversation. And I remember it was there in the parking lot of one of the markets more local to me. And Neil said, well, you're not that busy. Just come up Saturday. We've got a consignment sale. And so I went up and I sold some stuff off tables and yada, 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 like we all start. And he said, oh, you're doing fine. Just stay up there. Now, they took me off before they sold tractors and aluminum trailers and things with significant value. But I got a lot of practice that day. And he's right. It was a week, maybe 2 weeks later, and he said, hey, you can get off work Friday. Come up and we'll have you sell the Packer cows. And when I got off the block after the Packer cows were done, he already had my entry form signed for the first contest I ever went to. And that's really how it started. And so I'm sure he'll tune into this, but they told me at that time, you're going to have a heck of a story. Just don't forget us. And so I don't tell my story without talking about that crew in Mankato. Like I say, not just Neil, who's a good friend and a mentor, but everybody associated with that market. And there are many others. There's a competing market up there that I went to and sold my first solo cow sale. I mean, that was cutting your teeth because there was nobody else. There was no other auctioneer there, and it was a bred cow sale, and it was, you're it, buddy. And so there's a lot of individuals like that in my story, as there are in everybody else's, but a lot of other auctioneers that have helped me along the way too. And so I guess I personally believe, when you look at that, having not grown up in the livestock marketing business, more on the production side, having not grown up around or with direct ties to an individual auctioneer, I think God put me in certain places at certain times for a reason. I don't know where the next places he's going to put me in are, but it certainly worked out so far, and I'm grateful for the people he's kind of put in my life to this point as well.
Yeah, that's such a fun story. And it's so fun that we've already been able to talk to Neil and kind of get his side of things and then get you on and share a little bit more about your story from your standpoint and just the impact that Neil and someone taking a chance on a young individual that kind of had really no idea what the hell he was doing and then just figured it out along the way. And going to the Auction School of Hard Knocks, I love how you said that. Can you just share a little bit more about your journey from then? It's been a few years since you've been there and you're still growing. You're a very young individual within the auctioneer industry and you're still growing and building and doing all the things. What's that kind of looked like?
Yeah, it's been a great ride. And I do remember when I was first starting, I was thinking, if I can just sell something, folding chair, pots and pans, livestock, I just want to sell something to prove to myself I can do it, right? And fast forward 5 or 6 years here, and everything I do now is related to the auction method, is related to price discovery. And what a fun ride, because, this week I'm going to sell a couple thousand feeder cattle at a couple of fixed markets or brick and mortar markets. I work with a company that's got 2 land auctions this week. So there's 4 out of 5 days where you have the actual auction going on. Now, of course, there's all kinds of prep work and things that lead into that, but it has been a fun ride. And I am still growing. Hopefully, I'm still making contacts. That's one of the absolute benefits to, like we talked about with King of the Ring, is just that exposure, not only to other auctioneers, and what a great community my fellow livestock auctioneers have become, whether they're other young guys that are starting out, or whether they're young guys that grew up in the business, or whether they're more seasoned auctioneers. There's a place for everybody in the livestock marketing business in particular. And so I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. But the one time I've been to the King of the Ring before, what really stuck out to me was the Hall of Fame induction, because there's, again, an opportunity. You may not even have the chance to talk to those men and or women that are inducted in any given year, but you get to hear their story through the induction from somebody that knows them well. And I remember at the time, the first time we came out there, I think it was 2 years ago, and got to sit through that with, I mean, I didn't know what it was going to look like, or have any expectations. And again, as a young person, you talk about charged up and ready to go seize the day. It was after that Hall of Fame induction, and it was just a phenomenal experience, because everybody has a story. How'd they get started? Where was their big break, if they had one? And that's something, again, whether it's a market owner in Nebraska or California, or an auctioneer that's really made waves in one way or another. I mean, there's a story associated with each of us. And I believe the livestock marketing business maybe to be one of the last frontiers, if you will, in agriculture. It's an industry that doesn't require a large inheritance, right? In terms of land or cattle or equipment, doesn't require an insane amount of capital to get started. All it requires is grit, desire, passion, and the willingness, like I say, to work hard. And that's the backbone and the background of a lot of both men and women, their stories in livestock marketing. And, you know, it's easy as a young person to kind of get bogged down and say, well, that's where I want to be, you know, and like I was talking about, man, if I could just sell something, if I could just call myself a legitimate auctioneer, you know, and years later, here we are. And so everybody's got a story like that. And to get to hear that, I think there were several market owners, of course, that were inducted the first time I was there, and to hear their stories was phenomenal. Looking forward to hearing everybody's kind of induction, so to speak, this year. I know there's a heavy prevalence to the West Coast, so there's another region of the country I've not spent a lot of time selling or marketing any livestock in by any means. So it'll be totally uncharted territory. Looking forward to hopefully making some new contacts and friends. And then, of course, we'll have Saturday, and we'll get to sell cattle at potentially all-time highs. And so that's, as an auctioneer, that's all you can really ask for, right?
A big part of your story has been mentors and people that have taken a chance on you. Can you share a little bit more about that, and just the importance of mentorship within the industry, and just kind of that part of your story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything. And as I mentioned, you know, if we're going to call livestock marketing that last frontier, then those of us that are in the business, those of us that are fully immersed, we have to take on kind of a mentor's mentality, so to speak. And I've been the beneficiary of that. And there are others that have a different set of mentors that are currently the beneficiaries of those type of relationships. But when you look around at the market owners, the auctioneers, and quite frankly, the producers that trust the livestock marketing sector to play such a pivotal role in their programs, if we can take half of that talent, half of that experience, half of that wisdom, and find a way to pass it down, then this industry, the auction industry, the livestock marketing industry, will be in good shape for generations. But we have to be willing to share those experiences. We have to be willing, like many were for me, to say, kid, I don't think that's going to work out the way you want it to, right? And fortunately, I had some individuals, auctioneers and not auctioneers, that shared that with me. But they were also willing to let me make some of my own mistakes too. And that's important as well. And I'm not done making mistakes. I'm going to make several more along the way. Sometimes I like to make the same mistake maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure I was wrong, right? And so, if you ever get to the point where you're done making mistakes, you're either really, really good or you're not trying hard enough. And so for me, I had those mentors, still have several of them, still can pick up the phone or talk with somebody, sit down. I sat down with a market owner and auctioneer just last week, and we had breakfast, and we talked about several things. Hey, this is what I'm seeing, right? This is new for me. I mean, I've never sold cattle this high. Of course, nobody has, but this is the first time I've been selling into such an aggressively upward trending market. And so to lean on those mentors, to lean on those friends, and then the other side of it, for there to be individuals like that are willing to share their experience, their knowledge, their understanding of the marketplace, that's so critical. And I do think if we can find a way to identify young talent, this industry will be unparalleled. Will be viable for decades and generations to come. But that's critical to have those mentors. Again, as a young person, I think we have to be aggressive enough to go seek them out. But then I would also urge somebody, when a young person does seek you out, or when you identify a young person with some talent or the right mentality, go out of their way. Go out of your way to help develop them. And I'm a testament of what that can do. And I'll be forever grateful for the individuals that have helped me, as well as some of them maybe I haven't even met yet that are sure to help me in the future. And so if you don't have those relationships, it's not worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing that you just said that stood out to me was, as a young individual, you have to be also willing to go reach for them. You have to be the person that is willing to go and have like kind of uncomfortable conversations and be like, hey, like, I really admire you. I know we have nothing in common. You don't know who I am, but like, can we sit down and talk for a minute? And be willing to get uncomfortable and seek mentors out as well. Because the biggest thing about mentorship, at least for me, is it's never been something that has completely fallen in my lap. It's been something that right place, right time, right people, but I also had to pursue it. I also had to be willing to put some in order to get some out. And then luckily, God partnered me up with the right people that were willing to reach back down the ladder and pull me back up with them. And I think that that's a big part of it, of experiencing yourself and putting yourself in experiences and situations where you can meet mentors, where you can meet people and just like continue to push yourself. Like you said, you went and sat at an auction market on your lunch breaks, and that's how you ended up where you are right now. But you put yourself in a situation where you weren't taking your lunch break in your vehicle. You were taking your lunch break in a place that made you present and made you relevant in your community, and just present and visible for everyone out there. And so that is a big thing for a lot of individuals, whether you're a person that's looking for you're like, hey, I'm ready to start handing down some of my advice, or someone that's like, hey, I need to start getting some advice. It's go to those events, go to King of the Ring, like you said, go to your local auction markets, go to all of those places, because it's not going to happen just by, you being like, I could really use a mentor,
Yeah.
but then I work from home and I'm just going to hang out here.
Yeah. No, that's 100% right. And the next couple of years for me, I'm sure will be kind of those awkward years where I'm probably somewhere in between. Like I say, I still lean on some of those individuals a great deal. Or hey, this happened in my Tuesday sale, or hey, I came across this in my Thursday sale. How do you handle it? And so I'm still very much that individual. But there are others that are up and comers and extremely talented, or have the right mentality, that are seeking some advice. And so I've been called in a couple of times with, hey, I did this on my Tuesday sale. How would you handle it? And it's like, whoa, are you sure I'm qualified to answer this? Right. And so it'll be kind of a fun transition. And I had an opportunity. I was approached by an individual in the Kentucky State Extension Program. And this was shortly after this past year's BLAC. And he reached out and he said, hey, we're doing a fundraiser, and I want to do a couple 1-hour sessions with you as an auctioneer for a 4-H age kid that might want to do that. And it was kind of one of those moments I was like, again, are you sure I'm qualified for this? And so, but he was an individual that I met through livestock judging at K-State and was a few years behind me. And he said, man, we'd love to have you be a part of it. And so there's an opportunity to give back. And I think, like I've said a couple of times, I just think that's so critical for any of us, whether we're 20 years old or 60 years old. And I know that probably gets a little easier with time, but for any of us, when asked to give back or when asked to contribute, especially in the form of professional development to the livestock marketing industry, I look at that as a huge responsibility, and hopefully I'll be able to give back, because as you'll probably be able to highlight throughout this afternoon's podcast, I've been given a lot in that regard. And so I look forward to being able to share some of that or pass that on whenever the time comes.
Yeah. We've talked a lot today about the past and what brought you to where you are right now. I'd love to talk about the future. What does the future have in store for you? What are some just like life plans, goals? What's the next few years look like for you?
Yeah, so we could probably do a whole nother podcast on that, right? But I think it's important to have big goals and big dreams. I mentioned at the top of this show that it was one of my goals to get back at least within striking distance of home and be involved also in the production side of what we do. And I've been home now for 4 or 5 years, and that comes with a lot of blessings, a few challenges as well, but get to be involved on the daily basis. I'm in our cow-calf operation, and so that's been great. And sell a couple of weekly feeder cattle sales a week, and want to continue that, want to always be somebody that contributes to the market, regardless of what may come in terms of accolades or experiences. I think one of my long-term goals is to continue contributing to the marketplace, and it's an ever-changing marketplace, right? So how does that look 20 years from today? Can't say that, but I certainly want to and have, I feel like at this point, planted my roots in the livestock marketing sector. That's something that I want to continue to be involved in, and then obviously some family transition stuff on the production side, which I think those two things go hand in hand, and so looking forward to that, looking forward to growing both of those businesses, hopefully in some degree. And again, I think I'm here through divine intervention a lot of the time, and I ask God to put me on his path, to shine a light on his path. And if that turns right and I'm not ready to turn right, hopefully I'm willing to follow it. And so as far as goals go, I mean, we all have big dreams and goals, and that's part of, as you mentioned, that's what drives us to get out and put ourselves in that place to where we can find them and chase them and identify them and ask for help. And so those are going to change over time for me. I'm not, I guess, green enough to think, well, I've got these 6 Legos. If I stack them this way, that's what I'll get, right? And so I'm going to follow that path, and in the meantime, continue to do the best I can for the producers and the customers that I serve. Continue to enjoy what we've got at home, and we've obviously, as we record this, had a abnormally wet and an abnormally cool spring and summer. We're at all-time high in the cattle market, and so I'm just trying to soak all of that in right now and keep my eye open for the next opportunity that comes.
Beautifully said. As we round out the podcast, do you have any other things that you would like to leave with our audience or say before we end it?
Nothing major. I'll be quick. Obviously, I'm looking forward to coming out there the end of this month. It's going to be a great show. The Winter family has done a tremendous job with this event for the past several years, and it's something I'm honored to be a part of again here this July. Sure appreciate the opportunity to take part in it. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast, Lauren, and I'll look forward to seeing how much you had to trim this out to make it sound good, but appreciate all your efforts. Looking forward to seeing some friends out there later this month and hopefully selling some high dollar feeder cattle between now and then.
Amazing. Well, Barrett, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate everything that you shared with us and taking some time out of your very busy schedule to come on and share more about your story and your life and just some pieces of advice and everything else that came along with it. So thank you for your time. And to all of you listeners out there, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, do all the things. If Barrett's story resonated with you, make sure you go share it with a friend who else it might help in their story as well. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all tomorrow on another episode. Have a good one, y'all.